Okay, so I'm not gonna lie. However, I even try and go about this one, definitely gonna ruffle some feathers. But at the end of the day, I've got to acknowledge one of them as the worst. Either way, what's going, guys? It's Genie once again, another week, another vid. And today we will be looking at the worst palace in Persona 5. I'm going to preface this now before we get into the nitty gritty that is this video, okay? At the end of the day, this is my opinion, meaning that if you don't agree with this, that is completely fine, okay? That is okay. Just don't be rude about it. And if there's one thing that we can all agree regardless of this, it's that Persona 5 is a goated game through and through, without a doubt. That part, not even up for debate. So, now that that's out of the way, like I say again, today we will be talking about which, in my opinion, is the worst palace in Persona 5. Now, I also want to preface this now. We're going to be talking about Persona 5 and not Persona 5 Royal. And I think that distinction is very much important because Persona 5 has only 7 palaces, whereas Persona 5 Royal has 9 palaces. And I haven't played Royal yet, okay? I have only played Persona 5. I have yet to play Persona 5 Royal. So it could change when I eventually do get to Persona 5 Royal, but up until that happens, yeah, we're only going to be talking about Persona 5. And here's just a quick heads up. This is essentially your spoiler warning. Obviously, I'll be mentioning the palace, but I'll also be talking about what is happening in the story during the time of this palace taking place. So this, once again, is your spoiler warning. If you're someone who have yet to play Persona or you're already playing the game, this is your spoiler warning just for now. Now, up until this point, you've probably already had an idea in your mind as to which palace you believe to be the worst one. And that might even be for the fact that maybe the theme just doesn't hit as hard as the other ones do, or maybe it was just a bit difficult for you to stay invested in that palace compared to the other ones when you were playing the game. Heck, you might even believe that there isn't a single bad palace in the game, okay? And to that, I would say W Glaze, okay? Would I agree with that? No, hence why this video exists, but W Glaze regardless. The point is, apart from those people, you probably already have one in mind. And for me, that palace is Shido's palace. In the base game, Persona 5, Shido's palace ends up representing the final palace in the game. Okay, it's the final one before you reach the end of the game. And in all honesty, this one's the worst one for a few reasons. Okay, it's not like a button of reasons, and it's not like it does things terribly. It just, certain things it doesn't really do well, which sort of loses it for me. So let's get some context and let's talk about what point are we in the story. At this point, we have acknowledged that Shido has knowledge of essentially the metaverse, and essentially he's been using this knowledge that he has of the metaverse to get rid of his competition. Now, though he can't actually access the metaverse himself, he's been using Akechi to do essentially all of his dirty work, as Akechi actually has the ability to access people's palaces the same way that the Phantom Thieves can. Also, it's at this point that Joker has come to realization that Shido is the one that ended up getting him in this rough situation in the first place. Using his political power to get his way, it's by using his political power which has ended up Joker in this giant mess and this predicament that essentially has caused this entire game to roll out, or entire story to roll out. So the Phantom Thieves go in with the plan of trying to change his heart, the same way that they always have, to try and get him to atone for essentially everything he's done, as well as all of the dirty work that he's had done for him behind the scenes. Now, in regards to his palace is a ship. More specifically, it's an Ark, and it's more specifically going by the name of the Ark of the Elite. Now, the word Ark should already have some significance, because it's a biblical reference to Noah's Ark. If you don't know the story of Noah's Ark, God basically tells Noah that he needs to create an ark as God intends to flood the entire world. So Noah creates an ark in which God tells him to put 2 of every animal in this ark. Once Noah does so, God ends up flooding the entire world as he said he would. And Noah ends up saving, once again, 2 of every animal as well as himself. So the religious imagery is not only beautiful, but it's incredibly executed. The only difference is, in Shido's case, Shido sees society as lesser and he's only willing to save those that he considers the elite as they ride across in this arc in luxury. And even in the game and the scenes that you see during the game, you actually notice that his arc is sailing across the flooded city, and you can see literal buildings being submerged in the flood. See, Shido views himself as the savior. In his mind, he's been sent by God to save Japan, except he only wants to save his chosen elite. Like I say again, it's religious imagery done beautifully, or beautifully executed. Now onto what I don't really like about this palace, and the first one is the theme, okay? This one I feel like was obvious enough. Don't get me wrong, this theme isn't even a bad theme. This one gives sounds of grandeur and excellence. It does fit in with the whole theme of everything being elite. It does an incredible job at fitting the theme of the palace. My only issue is, and this is a bit of a shaky point to start off with, but it's the only one that or it's probably the one that I've listened to the least outside of playing Persona. Okay, if you're someone who's played Persona, I guarantee in your day-to-day life, maybe not every single day, but for the most part, you probably do listen to Persona like every now and then. Okay, you definitely have some Persona songs saved in your like songs or in some of your playlists. Like, there's no need to be ashamed of it, okay? That's just how it goes. And out of all the palaces, Shido's one's probably the one that I've actually played the least in my own time. Like again, it fits the theme, but in regards of listening to it in my own time, it's just not one that I've done because it just doesn't hit like the other ones. Like, don't get me started on Whims of Fate or When Mother Was Here, and heck, I can even chuck Price in there. Like, these palace themes are all certified bangers, and you and I both know that. But like I say again, though Shido's one does fit the vibe and the overall theme of this palace, all things considered, it's not really one that I'd listen to too much in my own time. It just doesn't really bang that much. It just doesn't have that replay factor for me. And in all honesty, I genuinely think every palace theme is actually better than this one. Like I say again, it definitely fits the vibe, okay? It's doing its job, but apart from that, it's not really something I'd probably listen to in my own time. Next, I would say that this palace got absolutely hoed by Sei Nijima's castle, or palace being the casino. Okay, if you don't know, but I may have mentioned it before, if not, it's fine. Sei Nijima's palace is the one right before this one, okay? It's the penultimate palace in the game. And in Sei Nijima's one is a casino. And the problem is, this palace was a banger, okay? Out the park, home run. The developers cooked up with this one. This one, incredibly done, incredibly executed, everything chef's kiss. And once again, even the messaging behind this one is also pretty good, like Shido's ones I mentioned before. Obviously the Ark of the Elite and the reference to Noah's Ark. This one also has sort of, though not religious imagery, or it's not relating to any sort of religious stories itself, this one, the story or the inspiration behind it all sort of makes sense and works very well together. And also you need to add in the fact that the Phantom Thieves are working with Akechi, as we end up learning that Akechi also has the ability to enter palaces at this point. Like, think about it. The palace is a casino. Sei Nijima is a lawyer who fights for justice. That is so beautifully done. An oxymoron, if you will. They gave the lawyer who fights for justice a palace, which is a casino, where the games are quite literally rigged against you for you to lose. Oh yeah, these guys are cooking with this one. And the theme, don't even get me started on Whims of Fate. Trust me, we could really be here all day, okay? Whims of Fate is without a doubt, in my mind, the best palace theme of all palaces, okay? I know some might say When Mother Was Here, and I can hear it out, but personally, Whims of Fate was without a doubt the best one, okay? If I could go back and listen to it for the first time, I would do so 1000%, no questions asked. Genuinely, Lynn must have been feeling different on this day when they were recording it, because she hit every single note. She must have been in straight flow state on the day that they were singing this one. Even the lyrics, if we really want to dissect them for real, let's just look at the first verse and the first chorus. Lines like, keep your focus away from the cheating hands, and to give into temptation, to win it, maybe lose it all. Who knows where the whims of fate may lead us? These are all things that you could relate to a casino. The whole idea that you you probably shouldn't give in temptation, because if you give into that temptation, you're going to want to play another round, and then the likeliness that you're going to lose is pretty high. But if you win, that chance of winning would feel incredible, which is ironically literally mentioned in the next line about possibly winning it or possibly losing it all. And then the final line in the chorus talking about who knows where the whims of fate may lead us, almost to say as if there's this actual chance that this whimsical thing called fate could actually be on your side, even though it can't be controlled. But the chance of it happening is enough for you to give into that temptation and take that risk. Look, my point is, Sei Nijima's Palace was a masterpiece. It was incredible. The issue is, it was such a good experience that it might have actually set the expectation a tad bit too high for when people come around to playing the final palace. Think about it, when you play a palace like Sei Nijima's, like this palace once again is a masterpiece. So you would think the final palace, hey, if this one was this good, the final palace is either going to be on par with this or better. The problem is, it failed to do that. And I don't even want to blame the palaces, like the palace, for doing that. I don't think it's Shido's Palace's fault for doing that. It's just that Sei Nijima's Palace was so good that it sort of set it up for failure, because it's like, it was a banger. I mean, after all, we're talking about the literal final palace in the game. So I think once again, people were expecting it to be grandeur, over the top, really good. The expectations were set high. This is the literal final palace you fight in the game. And like I say again, I think in some parts, Sei Nijima's Palace being so well put together sort of set it up for failure. After that, I would also say where this palace is placed into the story, and this is another one as to why it kind of doesn't really do it for me. Don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that Shido's Palace being last was an incorrect decision. Absolutely not. I think it more than makes sense that the man who quite literally ruined Joker's life should be the final palace in the game. That absolutely makes sense. The point I'm trying to make is that after defeating Shido's Palace, I was under the assumption that the game was going to be ending rather soon. I wasn't really expecting myself to do a whole lot much after defeating this palace, just to realize there is still quite a bit to go before you actually even finish the game. And this is your spoiler warning once again, but after defeating Shido's Palace, you have to go to the depth of mementos, as your final boss, technically speaking, is the entire of society itself. We learn that essentially society has become a slave to do whatever it's told to do, as society find it too much effort to essentially think for themselves. So they all decide to blindly follow like some sheep, because thinking for themselves simply just takes way too much effort. Hence why people like Shido was actually able to prosper. No one ever wanted to take the time to question this guy's possible motives, because for society it made more sense to blindly follow this guy and just do whatever he says, hoping that this guy is a trustworthy guy, than step back, think for a second, and actually question if this guy's intentions are right for the people of Japan. But people didn't want to do that, as it simply took too much effort for them to do. Don't get me wrong, I think it's a beautiful end to the game by going up against society itself. You have these kids who have been made outcasts and rejects, fighting against the very system that put them there in the first place, making a space for themselves where they can live without judgment and be themselves, feel free. It's incredible, but because of all that, it kind of made me undermine Shido's Palace, because there was still quite a bit to do even after that point in the game. Also, this is kind of a random extra point to insert at this point, but I'm gonna do it anyway, because heck, it's my script, not yours. The way that they wrote off Akechi in the game, what the heck? Akechi was tasked with taking out the Phantom Thieves in Shido's Palace, and he ends up failing to do so. Then we learn, after his failed attempt, that Shido had actually planned to snake him anyway, as if Shido's palace version of himself was essentially gonna have his palace version of Akechi defeat the actual Akechi. He was gonna get rid of the very puppet that had been doing all his work for him this entire time. And in doing that, Akechi decides to sacrifice himself to save us. And don't get me wrong, it makes sense, okay? It kind of makes sense. During that time, Akechi starts to realize the error of his ways and decides that like he wants to finally be a good person, and that he acknowledges that Joker has helped him in that change. I just think it was a bit of a weak way to write Akechi out of the story. You have this kid who's finally deciding to become good, and in wanting to finally become good, ends up sacrificing himself to do it. Don't get me wrong, this would be kind of okay if it happened over a decent stretch of time. You know, if he was slowly becoming good, then like, I would sort of understand it. You know, if it was one of those where over the period of the game, Akechi is slowly becoming a good person, it would make sense. Except this all kind of happens within like a very short period within the game. This genius kid detective, who's not been a key pillar within this game, but someone that we've definitely had our interests on and had to keep our tabs on, just to lose him so quickly in such a way just kind of frustrated me and annoyed me a bit. Like, I thought we were actually going to get to play with Akechi again, but no, we lose him. Either way, I think this is the point where I'm going to start to wrap things up. Like I say again, I don't think that this palace does anything terribly, okay? I don't think it's absolutely disgusting and like, no, okay? I think Shido's palace for the most part is pretty decently put together. But I just think, like I say again, just those few reasons that I had do start to add up. For example, the very first palace in the game, well, that's where, you know, the first 4 members of the Phantom Thieves all unlock their personas. I can't believe I was about to say phantoms, but they unlock their personas. The second member unlocks, well, not second member, the 5th member. Why can I not speak? The 5th member unlocks their persona. The point is, a lot of these take pretty significant moments in the story, these palaces, right? Or the palaces, like I say again, are just that beautifully done and masterpieces well put together. But Shido's one never really has time to set in, because it comes right after Sei's one, which is a masterpiece of a palace, but then it's right before you enter the depths of Mementos, in which now you're fighting the entire society itself. It's just, it sits in a really weird spot. Like, yeah, it's the final palace of the game, but I just don't think it did that great of a job being the final palace. Either way, I think this is where I'm going to wrap up the video. And once again, I do want to absolutely preface, at the end of the day, regardless if you agree with this opinion or not, Persona 5 is still a goated game. And I still yet to play Persona 5 Royal, but I do hope to. I think that's one part that we can all agree on. Persona 5, without a doubt, is an incredible game. I just think that Shido's Palace was a bit of a letdown. Either way, that's what we're going to call it. This has been your boy Genie, and I will see you guys all next week. See ya.